Hi, everybody. I'm Paula Smith, and I'm your hostess for this evening. And this is Mr. Phillip Garrison, and he has some amazing things to share with you tonight about beeswax. And should be used in so many ways, and he's going to show us all of that. I also want to just give you a little rundown. I know that most of you have these, but we did have some programs coming up in February, and I wanted to highlight those before we get started. For adults, we have the raised bed gardening on February 8th, and on February 3rd, we have an intro to hand quilting and piecing. And then if you have children or grandchildren, in February, we have a seed program for preschoolers, fairy and gnome gardens for 5 and up, the farm kids. It's on the back of the program. We have terrariums and a water cycle for elementary school homeschoolers, and for high school homeschoolers, we have a livestock care. So I just wanted to highlight those, and without further ado, we can start our program.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Hey y'all, my name is Kira Sims. I'm the County Extension Coordinator here in Coleman with the Cooperative Extension System. I just wanted to throw a quick blurb out there about this program and some that we've got coming up. Thanks to Rachel and the Agriplex for partnering with us in Extension. Phillip and I sat at the county fair this past fall and brainstormed ways we could get people more involved in bringing in their entries and things like that. And so Candlemaking with Beeswax was one of those that came up. So the Extension Office is hosting a series this year. It'll be every other month, starting this month with January, called Prepare for the Fair. And so the idea is there will be some sort of workshop that will give you an idea of, hey, if you finish watching Phillip make these candles today and you figure, I can do that, and you go home and you give it a shot, well, don't just totally discard that candle, or don't give them all away as gifts, but hold on to a couple of them and save them for the county fair this year. There will be a beeswax candle category, and so we would love for you all to kind of get involved in that. And then there's a couple other programs that are coming up. So Agriplex will hold the gourd craft in March, and so that's going to be another one. If you come to that, you'll probably see me say a similar spiel. Then there's a jam and jelly making in May, where one of our other extension agents will come in and teach how to take fresh produce, or not produce, fresh fruit from the local farmers and turn that into yummy jams and jellies, but again, one that you can turn into the county fair. And then I will be teaching a seed starting class in July, because a lot of people they get to the fair and they're like, oh my gosh, my garden's a total disaster because I planted it back in March. So I want to help people understand how can you plant a late summer garden to be ready for the fair. So with that, I just wanted to throw that out there, but Phillip, it's all yours.
Well, let me carry on a little bit about what Ms. Sims was talking about. Coleman has always been at the fair, was always real big in produce and stuff at the fair. Of course, unfortunately, it has moved about a month later, but this year it was pretty slim, and that's I'm glad that she is thinking positive about it, wanting to do some things, because it is something that's interesting. There's very few fairs in Coleman that has an ag exhibit anymore, and we don't want it to stop. It's part of our legacy and history of our county. Also, the lady that is our hostess tonight mentioned raised beds. Wow, raised beds are great. If you've never done it, you got to do it. I've been a gardener and a farm boy all my life. It's a great way to do it. Okay, let's get to the subject at hand. I am a beekeeper. I've been beekeeping. I've been around bees all my life. Unfortunately, I never met my grandfather, but he had honeybees. My dad had honeybees, and I've carried it on. I went just a little further with it. At home, we just had enough honeybees for our own use, basically. Now, Daddy did have a little surplus honey that he sold, but most of it was sold while he made sorghum syrup in the fall of the year. And people would ask, do you have any honey, Mr. Garrison? He said, yeah, I got a little bit. But I've always been fascinated with honeybees. Even growing up, Daddy had what they used to call the little German black honeybees. As mean as a snake. But now they really done well, but you just didn't mess with them if it's cloudy. On a sunny day, you were still cautious, but they would work. But now my dad, he just always amazed me. When he'd harvest honey, he'd put a veil on, no gloves and a short sleeve shirt, and go down there and harvest the honey. Well, I was never that brave, and I'm still not. But now I love honeybees. I'm not scared of them. I respect them. As a beekeeper, we need to always keep in mind, your eyes is very important. And I seen a guy in a bee catalog one time that got stung in the eyeball. It's not a good thing. I mean, it's these protective clothes, in my personal opinion, need to wear it. It's there for a purpose. It's not that you're wimpy and don't want to do it. It's just that you don't need to do it. Now, there's some circumstances in beekeeping that you need your hands to do some things that's real tedious. And yes, you take a little bee sting therapy during that time. But I will say, the stings doesn't hurt after you get stung several hundred times. It just becomes like a mosquito bite. But anyway, it's still the first sting of the year always goes, that felt really good. But anyway, which I'm fortunate, as long as I'm not, now I don't like to be stung from my neck up. What little brain I got, I don't want to swell and go away. So, it really doesn't bother me, never has, and I've been blessed. But I make myself get stung in an early part of the year to make sure I haven't got allergic to it. Because if you go, some of my yards ago, I'm a mile out off the road. You don't want to get in that situation if you are allergic. But anyway, one of the byproducts of beekeeping is the wax. When we harvest honey, now there's several different ways, or two different ways actually, that people, when they harvest honey, if you ever seen a frame of honey, the outside, the bees cap it off. That's what I use for making candles. It's called captain's wax. Now I have a chain decapper, and it knocks it, it frails it off. And I'm gonna give this to one person, and y'all, and pass it around, and y'all look at it. It looks a lot like oatmeal. That's what it appears to look like. But that's what beeswax looks like before you clean it. There is a process of cleaning wax. When you got to put it in to clean wax. For instance, if you want to buy some wax to make some candles, and if you're having to talk to a beekeeper and he says, "Yeah, I've got wax," and you might get it just like that. If you do, you're going to think, "Wow, what do I do with this stuff?" Well, what you got to do is have wax is very flammable. And if you do it, you got to do it as a double boiler type, melting the wax. Now I have a wax melter, but you can do it with a crock pot. I've never tried it, but I've talked to a lot of people that use it. Crock pot works, but you can go to a retail store somewhere, and if you'll notice, this pot is bigger than this one. You put water in this one and put that in and put your cappings in and melt it. But now you're gonna need to strain that wax about at least 2 times. And what I do is just buy an old shop cloth at a retail store somewhere, and that's what I use. And you buy, and I forgot to bring it, it's a little strainer that this goes on. And all I do is take some clothespins and put on it and pour the wax through it into another pot. And that cleans it, but you have to do it 2 or 3 times. Because if you have dirty wax, when the candles are burning, they won't burn correctly. They may burn, but they may pop, and it needs to be good clean wax. This is what it looks like when it's clean. 99.9% of our wax is this color in Colvin County when you clean it. It's just this yellow color. If you'll notice, this candle right here is very nearly human skin color. Don't ask me where it came from, but I think I remember where it came from. If I remember correctly, I carried some bees on canola one year, looking for different honey sources. And it's really water white, that honey is. And the wax was really light. And I feel like, because I've had this candle for several years, this particular one. And that's, if I remember correctly, that's where it came from. But most of our wax is gonna be this color yellow. In making candles, if you want to pour it in some other color other than yellow, you can't really get a good purple candle because yellow, it's yellow. You cannot get a light color, real light color very well. This in here is made out of some light wax, and it's a burgundy, and it looks pretty good, but you know, it looks okay. Just give you, for instance, you look at these red candles out here, you can very well see there's a difference in the color of the red. I didn't use different coloring. It was part of the wax was really bright yellow, like this right here. And then some of it was a dingy more yellow, but it was clean. But that's what makes the difference. You use the same coloring, you'll wind up with different red. So if you want to make candles this color and you have some wax that color, don't mix any other with it because it'll be a shade different. I guess that's what's unique about beeswax candles. You pour them and they're going to be a red, but they might not be exactly just white. That's the reason I always, if they're a pair, I pour a pair at a time where at least they look a lot like, but you can see a difference in it. Same way with green, you can have a bright green. This in here was made out of some of the darker yellow wax because the green is not the bright green. It's sort of off green. And I've made enough candles, I sort of know how to do it, but you can't change the wax. It's just that way. There's all kind of type candles. Beeswax burns very, very hot. It's extremely hot. When you burn a beeswax candle, it needs to be in a good quality candle holder. If you buy one that's real thin, it's pretty fragile, it won't last long because it'll break it because of the heat from it. Beeswax really burns real hot. Now, I'm not a scientist or anything, but I've always heard that beeswax helps purify the air. I'm not going to say it does, and I'm not going to say it doesn't. But it is supposed to be a good, healthy burning wax. Or is clean wax and things of that nature. Has anybody got a question on that for it? Yes.
I bought from wax and it had some of the smoky, like, scent to it. Does that go away for the multiple filtration process?
The wax had a smoky, okay. I'm gonna tell you a little experience I got into. There was a house burnt down. And there was some bees in that house. And they called me, wanted me to come and get the bees. Of course, the bees were dead and there was a bunch of wax. I thought, well, I'm gonna get it. And when I cleaned it, it smelled like smoke. And unfortunately, it never came out.
Okay.
It's hard to get, you just want hard to get that smell out of it. Now, I will say this, there's a knife that you decap with wax, and that works good, there's no problem. When you first start cleaning it, you may smell a little bit in it, but once you clean it, it's okay. Now mine is frailed off, so it don't have the heat, but the wax, the hot knife that they use to decap it with, it's okay once you clean it. Most of the time it'll be okay. The only way that I could say if you had some of that wax, if you wanted a little scent to it, you could add a little scent to it. It might do away with that smell if it's not real strong. It might work. Anybody else got any questions about the process of cleaning the wax.
So when you cap yours, do you ever take that wax and just leave it out for the bees to clean the honey residue off of?
There is, I don't do it, but yes, you can.
We did it the last year and I was amazed at how well the bees clean.
They'll clean it up, they'll get all the honey out of it,
Yeah,
and you get rid of some of the goop in the wax. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cause like this here, when you clean that wax, there's gonna be about a 20 or 25% of it, I just call it goop. And what it is, it's pollen and just debris. It's what comes, and when the wax will float to the top and the goop's on the bottom and the honey will be below that when you clean it. But yes, the bees will clean it up. I don't do it, but yes, I have done it before and it works well. They'll clean all the honey out of it. Anybody else got a question about cleaning?
Is that after you take the wax out of it and let them clean what's left?
All right, what I'm talking about is the wax cappings. After you decapped it and got the honey out, you can actually put the cappings out and let them clean it.
Oh,
But now on my frames, after I get through extracting honey, I will put it out and let the bees clean the honey out of it. But not too long because they'll start cutting the wax out, let's cut holes in it. So you don't leave it long, you leave it for a couple of days and then you take it back in. And what that does, it gets the honey out of the frames is what it does. Anybody else got any questions on that before we go further? All right, pouring candles. I poured some early on because these here takes a while to come out. And they also got a cure for a little bit before you take them out. This is a pointed votive. I'll let you pass it around. It's nice and warm still. Excellent. But also something that if you have wax that you people, this is the little wax bars. And they're just a 1 ounce bar is what they are. They work good for, we sell a lot of them for people that sew and things of that nature because they use it. The little wax bars is pretty neat. Now, Miss Sims was talking about the fair at the present time, and I'm glad they're gonna have a candle class too, because it'd be neat. In the past, it's always been a 1 pound block, and that's what this is a 1 pound block of wax. But I'm glad they're gonna have it, because I like to see it happen in Coleman, because it's something that we need, in my opinion. Making candles, you have to use a mold release in certain type candles, and I did not bring one. This one here, if you'll notice, it's the mold is a flex mold. That's the only way to buy it. Don't buy plastic molds. They're cheap for a reason. You'll pour about 4 or 5 times in and then they break. And so you're buying again. These here, I've got one of these molds that I've had for 15 years, I'm still using. But it's a good flex mold. So is these molds here. This mold I know I've had over at least 15 years that I just got to take that candle out of it. I'm gonna pour some and then show you how they don't on the tapers, and this is tapers that I'm fixing to pour. And that's a mold release I put in, what it is. The older I get, the less steady my hands is. If you'll notice, there's wax running down the side of the mold, so that's part of it. I'll walk around here to the other side and pour them in. Some candles, when you pour, they will shrink. a little bit. And you have to cap them off one time. You don't, you'll have a dip in the bottom of it. Well, of course, in these small loaches too, because they come out pretty quick. And if you'll notice that candle that's passing around on the bottom, there's a tab on it. There's a purpose for that tab. You don't have to do it on tapers, but as a candle burns, it's when it gets close to the bottom, it'll pull that wick off the bottom, and it'll pull the wick out, and you'll lose about that much of the candle. It won't burn, you know, it's that tab on the bottom that holds that wick where it'll burn up. So that's the reason I put a tab on it, is because of that. One other thing I wanted to do too, also tonight, you can make soy wax candles.
When do you insert
The wick,
no,
What's
the metal?
oh, the tab on the bottom.
Yeah.
After it sets for a little bit, because if you put it in too quick, you'll crush the candle.
Okay.
So on this one, you have to wait about 30 or 40 minutes at least, and then you can put the tab on. Now, like these, let me show you on these. These here has, of course, this one's got a bigger size wick. This is a 2/0 wicks, and this is a 65. But it has a tab on the bottom, but now you gotta let it set for a good while. Now this one you can take out about every 24 hours. It takes a long time for it to dry. To be able to pull it out, if not, you pull the wick right out of it. You'll learn that the first time you do it. I gotta get that out somewhere and report now. So a lot of this stuff I learned on by mistakes. Something else I done a little earlier is I hand dipped. This is a hand dipped candle. And you know, they don't take a moment for this. But on the little pot that I got in here is not hardly, I mean, if you'll notice, that's about a 1/6 candle. All you do is put the wax, all right, we go in there. They don't want to do this. But what I do, I go from that to water. In this oven is water. I'll do this a couple times and then I'll straighten the candle out. You can straighten it out to where it'll be straight. But the thing about hand dipped candles, they're not perfect. And that's what makes them unique.
I've seen where they would tie a bolt or a washer at the bottom.
All right, let me tell you what I've done. Rachel asked me if I was gonna do some hand dips. I said, yes, ma'am, I am. I have a hand dipper thing at home, but it's one of those things you have to buy. I said, you know, I can do this myself. So my first nut, this is the first time I've done this, was just like this. But I did tie a nut on the bottom of it. I thought, you know, I think it'll work without it. It does. Now, what you do have to do as you go along with this, before it gets too big, you might need to straighten it just a little bit more. If you'll notice, right on the end, it's beginning to build up. You just pinch that off and drop it back down the wax. That way it sort of keeps it going. Just keep going. And you want the bottom of your wax about most candle holders is about 3/4 of an inch. And that's about what these are. They're not going to be exact, but real close. And that's the way you want it. Because most voltage, that's what it is.
Is your water just room temperature?
It's just room temperature water. You notice that little piece of wax hung on the side, that's on top of it on the side. But you can sort of shape it. You know, you're gonna get wax all over your hand, but it's good for you, I guess. But anyway, I gotta dip this till we get the right size. Somebody else told me they tried this and it didn't work, but it does work. And just sort of straighten it out and pinch off some of it off the bottom if you don't want as you go. Because once you dip it in the water, the wax is not that hot. And I've got the heat on low, it's just keeping the wax melted good.
So what's the mechanized process for this? What does the hand dipper do?
Well, the other one holds, it's a frame that holds. You can make 3 sets of candles at a time.
Oh,
And they're 10 inches long. You make them longer. This is a metal shaft that has an adjustment that you can raise up and let down and make different height lengths of candles. And what it does, it's a metal frame that you put the wicking on all the way around it. And you've seen candles that's the wick goes from one candle to the next on 2. That's what that does.
okay.
And you can just do more at a time, but if you don't want to have to pay for something other than some good cotton wick, you can do it like this right here. I couldn't find a deep enough pot to make it as long as I wanted. Nancy went to the grocery store, my wife. She said, I looked everywhere and there's nothing really, really tall. So she's done the best she could do, but it works great.
Now, do you basically stick with the 2 sizes of wicks?
All right, this type candle takes a 2-ply wick. Then you got a 4-ply, which is up to 2 inches. Then anything above that, you use a 60-ply wick. I use all cotton, and actually I've got a wicking that I bought from a company that takes a paper wick. And I didn't know how it worked, but it works quite well.
So you're using a 2-ply for the smaller stuff.
Yes, sir.
When do you switch over to a 4-ply?
When you get up to, when you get to 2 inches and above, you use the 4-ply.
Okay.
Well, I mean, up to 4 inches, well, up to 3 inches, and then from there up, you use the 60-ply. I'm sorry.
What was the last one, 60?
60-ply. So see, you got a hand dip candle, it's got a little wax on the bottom, but you can let it cool for a little bit and cut that off, or you can do this right here and take it off right now. And if you want to shape a little bit on the bottom, you can. But so this way you don't have to buy a mold or anything, you can just use your wicking and some beeswax. And the deeper pots you got, the longer you can do. But it's hard on mine that I do hand dip about 10 inches as far as I can go, because I don't have a deeper pot that I can go further. Which most candles are 10, 12 inches. But if somebody wants to try their hand at a hand dip, I have some wick here. Somebody wants to try it. It won't cost you a dime. It won't cost none at all. It's pretty fun, actually. Matter of fact, I already got one started here. Have we got any takers? Nobody wants to do this? I thought I'd have one, surely.
I don't know myself anyway. I'll take one there. Is that started?
Yeah, but now don't dip it too deep because you'll get it on the thing.
There we go. Well, I'll set it for
Don't hurt for a second or 2.
Go a little bit there, you can go a little bit. There you go. and just go in the water.
I just love the way Beeswax smells.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
You're right.
You said you had a wax mill.
Yes, sir.
Is that like a semi-commercial, bigger type thing, or?
Somewhat, it's not, I mean, I'm not no commercial guy, but it's, what it does, you can put a 5-gallon bucket of captains in it and it'll melt. But now there's a divider bucket that you use, and what it does, it goes down into that bucket and there's a divider, like a quarter pipe. And what that does, once it cools, you can get the wax out easier. And the honey, there's a spout that comes out, and then the overflow of the honey and stuff runs out that spout. And you have to watch that, because if you don't, it'll run over and then you got mess. But anyway, that's what I use. I usually clean about 200 pounds of wax a year, so the wax melter comes in handy for that.
So you got quite a few lots.
I've got several, yes. I'm pretty well obsessed with it, I guess. But I enjoy beekeeping, I really do. It's part of my life that I really enjoy. Yep, just, all right, just pick it up and just pinch that off. Mhm. Mhm. I am melting some soy wax right now. I'm gonna do it in this right here.
Later, use all the cannon jars from the farmer's market.
You're right. Now I use a half pint, what I do. If you'll notice, and I've done this earlier with I put a tab on the bottom of it. On this side, you gotta do a pre-wicking thing. And you've also need to dip it in that one time, and I ain't close enough to my jar here. You gotta do a pre-wick to make the wick stiff. Also, you push down on the tab. If you'll notice, I push down the tab on it, and that sticks to the bottom of the jar. Is what that does. And when I pour the first little bit in there, I'll pour just a little bit and let it set up about a quarter of a half inch. And that way it'll set even better, and then you can fill it on up. If you'll notice, that wick is stiff, and that will hold the wick in place, and it'll be in the center.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
There you go.
Gary Williams.
Thank
But anybody else wants to do that, you're more welcome to while waiting on the soil, right? If you'd like to.
How often can you repeat your wax, and do you just keep adding to it, or do you need to clean it out?
What I normally do, if I'm doing a lot, I will report and strain it again, because there'll be just a little bit of film gets on it, and I do re-clean it again. But if I'm pouring if I pour a lot of candles at one time, I may empty a big pot in a hurry, but if it's gonna be a little while, it's advisable to clean it every once in a while and get that real fine stuff that shows up on it. Because I like for it to be pretty and clean when it's done.
The soy wax have a lot lower melting point.
It does. This year is it's 3/4 melted now.
You can dip your finger in the well of wax and soy, don't let it beeswax.
No. It'll hurt. But something else I'm gonna do, and this is really gonna be an overkill. You can buy chips of color. You'll notice it's just a little bit chip. That is enough for a pound of wax. That one little chip. Back years ago, Porette was in business. Unfortunately, they're not anymore. They had the best coloring of anything I've ever seen. This is some of their last that they had. But you can buy the chips. And one chip will do a pound. And if you want to color it, I just thought the color because the soy is going to be white. I just thought it looked better. And I'm going to put some tangerine skin in it. You need to wait till the wax gets completely melted before you put the skin in for sure. But it's okay to put the coloring in pretty soon.
What's the pros and cons of beeswax and soy wax?
Well, I'm a little prejudiced to the beeswax because it's natural. As natural as you're gonna get. Soy, and I almost say soy is not as natural as it used to be. And I told them, I don't need to get myself in too deep here, but soy is not, but now it's a really a neat burning wax. I was at a craft show one time and there was a husband and wife. They was, I'm gonna say 10 years older than I am now. And they were such a neat couple. I enjoyed talking to them. And they had soy candles. And they were burning. And he said, run your hand through the flame. I thought, wow, I can't believe that. You won't do that one. Beeswax. You'll be burning for a little bit longer. But anyway, it was pretty neat. And I've made some, I've had people want to buy container candles. You cannot do container candles out of pure beeswax. It burns too slow and it'll drown itself out. So it just won't work. So I called the people that know more about beeswax than anybody in the world as far as Candlemaking. And I said, what can I do to make a container candle out of beeswax? He said, 100% pure beeswax, forget it. It ain't gonna happen. I said, there's gotta be. He said, no, sir, it will not work. So I took his word for it because they knew a whole lot more about it than I did. I said, what would you recommend? He said, well, the most natural thing other than that would be soy. He said, you just gonna have to experiment on your own. That's not. He said, I have no idea. So I started pouring candles. And I use these little half pints. And I started out at 80% beeswax and 20% soy. Kept going until I got to the point. And the point that worked was 60% soy and 60%, yeah. 60% soy and 40% beeswax. Because if you get it more beeswax than that, it just will not burn that. I was hoping it'd be 50 or 55%, but it didn't happen. So that's just part of it. What I do my difference. Here it is.
I thought this was a four candle.
Yes, poured candles on it. Now, if you want to do soy, what little bit I know about soy. Let me see if I can make a mess. One minute, please. I'm impressed still use everything. It don't take much to impress me. On soy now, if you want to make pillar candles out of soy, it's a different makeup of soy wax. Don't ask me, I don't know. I've only used the poured, where you pour it. But if you want to make pillow candles out of soy, you have to buy that wax. And it has to be that Glory Bee and Candlewick sell soy wax. And they're all up north, they're northern companies. Up north is where they're at. Any of your Wiccan and stuff of that nature, I'm sure you can buy it elsewhere, but I buy it from Man Lake or Glory Bee or Candlewick. As far as the mold itself, you need to, I would recommend you want to buy, like I said, the flex modes only. They work a whole lot, they're just better. They'll go for a long, long time. You can buy some plastic, it don't matter if you want to do that, that's your business. But they will not last as long. All right, when you take this, the tapered modes, what I do, I usually twist it just a fuzz. What that does, it breaks it away from the side. That's what it does. And it don't take long, most time about 15 or 20 minutes. You can pick those up.
What's the mold made out of?
It's a flex mold. I'll be honest with you, I cannot tell you what the product is, but they're very durable. A mold like this, this taper mold will cost you about $20 for one mold. But now you can make hundreds of candles and hundreds with it. If you want to do colored or yellow, you know, the beeswax natural, you need to buy molds for the colored candles and molds for the beeswax, for the natural beeswax, because it will stain the mold and it will come off on it. It might clear up after about 4 or 5, but you're gonna have sort of a little faded color on it. Now, I've done some yellow apples before. I've done some red apples and then do some yellow ones after that. It sort of makes the apple look pretty unique. You know, have a little red on the yellow. But basically, I use the same mold for the natural wax. Anybody got any questions?
How do you price them?
$1.25 an ounce. Time you buy all this good stuff to do it with, you've got quite a bit invested, but they do last a long time. But that's what I sell them for, is $1.25 an ounce.
But you're also not buying the wax.
No, sir, I'm not. Well, no, yes.
You have a
no.
lot of cost.
Yeah. I've got a lot of expense in beekeeping, but yes, it's, if I go to a wholesaler, like say, I'm gonna use, for instance, like Ross and Acres, you can sell your wax to them. Anybody else want to hand dip a candle? I'm gonna cut this wax off.
I'd like to.
Come on. You're more than welcome to.
I have a question, John.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how you want to answer this, but if you had a frame, I mean, if you take off the wax you're gonna take off, for
Mhm.
you, how much wax would you get off of that hive to make candles? I mean, would it be enough to make several, or?
Put it this way, I'm gonna put it this way, I can't tell you per hive or per frame,
Like,
but I usually extract. Now, when I say supers, that's 9 frames of honey in every super. I normally extract 200 to 300 supers a year,
okay,
and I'll harvest about 100 pound of wax. So it's, you know, there's not a tremendous amount of wax.
So we had one time this last year that I kept the wax on, and he's doing like he does, he just cuts the cap, so you're not taking everything. And I would probably have enough wax when I cleaned everything to make maybe 3 candles. Not a lot, because they're leaving that for the
Yeah, this
big,
is
yeah,
one.
for the yellow wax.
but it takes a while, yeah.
And see, I don't even have all of my, you know, what we have around, I'll let it out, and we take all that sticky out of it, so then we put it back, clean it white. No, I don't know. Yeah. And if you're really wanting that, you could take all of it off and part of it. But these have to be harder to deal with, you know, you have to use metal, every new utensils and wood and have a thing that's linked there.
Philip, did you tell them about where they could get?
Oh, yeah. If you want to, if you're not a beekeeper and you want some wax, there is some local beekeepers around. I know one in particular, he sells his wax to the broker, and, you know, and he cleans it somewhat, but you'll need to clean it at least one more time to get it to candle quality. But now, Tim Hartwick, and I can check with him to make sure he would have some wax to sell. Now what Tim would sell it for, I have no idea. I know what he'd get wholesale, but I don't know what he'd want to sell it for. Hops and Hat, I think, sells his wax also. And Hobson's would be pretty clean, but you still have to clean at least one more time, at least one. Clarence Johnson is a guy that lives on the east side of Coleman. I'm not for sure, but he might sell some too. Other than that, that's the only ones I know that's size enough we would have, you know, a sizable amount of wax. Now there's 1 or 2 beekeepers that's got just a few bees, and when they extract, they bring it to me and say, here, because they're not going to use it. And you've got to clean it somewhat so to the broker, because they will not take it like this at any price, because they've got to do all the cleaning. So that's the reason it's that way too. Look
Philip,
here, she's back at it.
There's a question in the Zoom
I'm
that
sorry.
says, Paige would like to know how many colonies you have.
I've got 120 plus. So I vary from 120 to 160. I'm not a full-time beekeeper, but
She said, thank you.
it's a lot of time. I've got them scattered all over Coleman County. Anybody else want to do one? Somebody wanted to. You know, it's a passion of mine. I enjoy it. It's something that I can do myself. Yes, I have expense, and I have a lot of expense. You know, I've spent a lot of money in a facility and equipment and things, but I grew into it. I started just like anybody else. You know, my dad had honeybees. But I started myself with 2 and lost both of them. I thought I knew all about beekeeping and didn't. But that was when I started, it was in the early 90s, and that's when the varroa showed its dirty face. And we started losing bees right and left, thought the whole industry was going out. And fortunately, over the years, there's some things that we have to use in our bees in the fall of the year when I do it, when there is no honey production going on. You have to do it. If you don't, you're gonna lose them. You gotta treat them, unfortunately. And so, over the years, I went to classes and learned about beekeeping. Auburn puts on one every year. And Jim too was the one that's over 10. And that was the number 3 program that I went to. And now they're at, what is it now? Running 47 or 8.
February one,
Yeah,
it's the 27th year.
27, excuse me.
Mhm.
So it's been going on a long time. And I learned a lot there, and I'm not one to read a whole lot. But there's a beekeeping book, it's Beekeepers A through A, B, C through Z or whatever. It's 1,500 pages. I read it. My wife said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yep." She said, "I've never seen you do that before." But I learned a lot from it, and a lot of it's experience. Straighten your top just a little bit. I'm not telling you what to do. Do what I want to. Looking good.
Okay, I have a question. If you're straightening and you break that,
You want it to be gentle. It's
Okay.
still warm. It's flexible enough. You couldn't do this,
Yeah.
but you can straighten it up before it work like that. But, and there's so much to learn in beekeeping, and we have never learned it all yet and never will. We're challenged now with other things going on. We have no idea what's going on. We're trying to figure it out. Most beekeepers are having anywhere from 20 to 50% loss every year. And queens used to be 15, and you can spend up to $60 for a queen now. Most of the time it's, yes, ma'am.
or 250 if you want to artificially.
Yeah, if you want a breeder queen, but don't go there, because they'll be anywhere from 250 to 500 for a bug. And you put them in the hive, and the hive can kill them just like that. So, but and I've ordered queens from all over the place. I try to buy queens from different breeders all the time, trying different genetics, see if I can find out what's going on. I personally don't know exactly what's going on. I wish I did know, because I'd like to see it stop. But our queens used to last for 2 to 2.5 years, and now if you get 1 year out of them, you're good. They just start failing real quick, not laying eggs like they ought to. And this year I replaced 25 queens that I put in 6 months prior to that, because they were already failing. I could tell the way the hive was doing. The best queens I've gotten is from Canada, when we could get them out of Canada before they closed the borders where we could ship them in. Now this is just queens, but now they was terribly expensive. They cost me $65 to get them here, but they also lasted 3 years. So that tells me something's going on somewhere, and I don't know exactly what it is. I wish I knew that answer, but I really do. What Auburn has done some studies on it. And the best thing I can figure out right now, the drones, their semen is not fertile like they are. There's a lot of non-fertile eggs that the queen is putting out when she gets bred. A lot of that's no good. And that's what they've found so far. But now what's causing that to happen, I have no idea. I just don't know. I wish I did.
Speaking of reading, just a few days ago, I saw something about bumblebee. It was basically saying that if they're come in contact with insecticides, especially with the new cotton oils or whatever, reduces their fertility by 20%.
Yes.
And that's passed on genetically. So the next generation, 40%.
And that's, you know, I agree 100%. Anybody else want to hand it one? All right, come on. Candle making is rewarding. It's a little neat deal that you can do where you buy a product, you can sell it. And that pretty much uses everything out of the beehive. You know, when you get the honey, you got the wax left, you can sell it all. Or you can burn it yourself. My wife loves candles, and I'm glad she does, and she burns one of them. She got involved in candle making one time, and she come up with some neat colors. I said, "How did you do it?" "I don't have a clue. It just turned out real pretty." I said, "Well, I can't make it again." So she said, "Well, I guess you need to do it where you're a little bit more scientific with it." But and there again, like I showed you, the two candles, a lot of it's to do with the wax, color of the wax. But it's neat to do. I enjoy the beeswax part of it. Of course, I like people. And when I went to craft shows, I had a blast selling candles when I had the time. But I enjoy people and like talking to them.
Do you have molds for all of your designs, or do you sculpt?
Every one of them. I'll tell you a little history. Of course, you know, Coleman County is known for the chicken and sweet potatoes. Well, the Alabama was hosting the National Poultry Convention in Montgomery, Alabama. This has been 7 or 8 years ago. The guy from Montgomery knew I made candles. He'd seen it in a magazine or something. And he called me and said, "I need some chicken candles." I said, "I have none. I can't get a chicken. I don't have a chicken mold." Well, I had heard of this place, and it's the Reynolds Company. And they sell a product, A and B, that you can make your own mold. Excellent. I said, "Okay, let me do some stuff." Fortunately, they called me about a year ahead of time. So I found out about this and I ordered it. And actually, if you'll think about it, this is salt and pepper shaker. If you've ever seen them, you know, it's a salt and pepper shaker. Well, Nancy had one. I said, "Are you willing to sacrifice?" She said, "I guess if you were going to pour it," they wanted 400 of them. I said, "Well, I think it'll be worth sacrificing." Well, I got the mold, and what you have to do, you have to get, what I used was it was a butter bowl that you buy that's plastic, because this stuff is not hot that you use. Well, I get everything, when you pour a candle, you know, you pour it like this upside down, actually. And then when you take it out, you know, this is the part that's the base. Well, I got it all situated. I got it, of course, I put it down in there like this, where it would be on the bottom. Then when I took it out, this would be exposed to pouring. I got that chicken all situated. I thought, boy, this is gonna be great. Well, I put A and B together, mixed it up. Now this stuff is like coffee. I mean, you know how gooey coffee is. I got it in there and I had that stuff all on me. I put on gloves, I got it all on. I got it, I thought, wow, this is good. Well, I done this in the basement. Nancy went down there to get something. She said, "Your chicken sticking its head out of the mold." I said, "Dude, what?" She said, "The chicken's coming out of the mold." I said, "Lord, it's come alive." Well, I thought, oh, this ain't good. I didn't think about it, but that salt and pepper shaker was polished. Here it came. Well, what was I gonna do at that point in time? So I get toothpicks and all this other stuff. I push it down and try to hold it in place. That's the ugliest mold you've ever seen in your life. But it sort of worked. So I started over and I filled the cavity of it with sand where it'd be heavy, where it'd stay in. And I made a potato mold the same way it happened with the state of Alabama. They was having a big convention. And that potato is odd looking, but they wanted a sweet potato mold. So I made sweet potatoes for them. Needless to say, I've never sold none except for them, but it was neat. I enjoyed it. But now the Reynolds Company, you can get the two and mix together. And it makes a mold that you don't have to put no mold in it. It comes out really good. But what you gotta use is use whatever you want to do in that mold to make it work. Anything you want to do. But now, something like this, you gotta cut the mold where you can get it out. And I learned that the hard way too. You gotta cut it, mark it when you do it on the side of the container. When you take it out, you know where to cut it to open it up and get something like this out. You know, a taper, or I actually made the mold for this pine cone. The one I used was a paraffin pine cone candle, is what it was. Of course, Nancy had used it a few times, just decoration, there's a few little punch holes in it. Of course, it showed up in the mold. Anything it's in is gonna show up. But I couldn't get a big pine cone mold, and that's the way I done it. It's pretty neat to do, and it's quite a bit cheaper actually, unless it went up a lot. Anybody else want to do one? I'm gonna cut it off with that wax. Anybody got a question?
You're adding sand. When did you add sand?
I put it in there. No, I didn't. Sorry, Ronna.
No, I just didn't know with the.
You know, I should have done it before. Let's see what it is. It might not work.
I didn't know if it had to cool a little bit.
I totally forgot. I meant to put it, you put the scene in right before you pour it.
And is it special product for candle scent?
It's candle scent. There again, this is still pour it. When I found out this was going out of business, I bought some inventory. But I'm about out. But I mean, you can still buy scent. It's pretty pricey. That's the reason I was tickled when people just wanted regular beeswax candles. Because this jar here then was $35. And and actually the natural wax sells better than any of the rest of it. Anybody else got a question?
How do you get the candles out of those that are form?
These, you didn't see me take them out?
Oh, I did. Did I miss it? Oh, okay.
You did.
All right.
Well, what you do, and I put a mold release in,
Okay.
sprayed it in. After it sets, I pull out from the edges, the base of it just a little bit. Then I take it up and I twist it. And that breaks it loose from the mold and then just pull it. And of course, I've got a whole roll of wicking on them. That way I can just keep pulling, keep going when I do it. Now, you know, like some of these, when I pour them in the mold, well, just like these, if you look, I've got, you know, a long string here of them. And they pull these out too. There it is. These little voltages, people like those because they'll burn for about 2 or 3 hours, 4. These right here is one that's pretty neat. I call it a dinner candle. And it'll burn for about 30, 45 minutes. Those little candles. And there is actually, it's an old, when you light the candles, it makes it turn. I don't know what it's called, but they're very old. And this fits those. If you happen to know somebody that's got one of them, if they can't find the candle for it, these fits it.
German has them, the little windmill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have those.
And it takes a little candle to go in it.
Yeah, that's probably the menorah size candle too. We use
Yeah.
the 30-inch.
Okay, yeah. And this fits it. In a mold, you pour 3 at a time in it. There's 3 at a time in that mold. Anybody else got any questions? I got done too early.
So when you clean up your stuff from doing the wax, like all your, how much do you clean up? Because wax is hard to deal with when it's solidified.
What, run up at me again?
All your pots and all the utensils that you use to do your candles.
If you'll notice, when I got through pulling, I took a paper towel and wiped it out.
That's just going to be where we're.
These here, the same way, when I get through pouring, I wipe it out. You can get them off, but if it's different color, you got a mess. I always wipe them off. You'll notice on the handle, that might not get it hardly at all. But anyway, but I always wipe them out when I get through. And this one here, if it's cool enough, I'm gonna take it out real cool. Because if it don't, it'll still be sitting up for a while. Well, I wish this would dry, but it's not gonna dry for a while.
You need to use stainless steel for everything.
No, not really. That's just what I bought. Because these stock pots like this is not that expensive. They're pretty cheap. You definitely don't want to use something you're gonna cook in because it's done once you use it. It just don't work too well. Now, Bed Bath and Beyond sells, now Walmart has had them a few times, but now this holds about 3 pound wax full. It's really neat. Some of them even got the pour spout.
Bennett used to have one.
I don't know if Phoenix does or not, but these work good at, doing smaller batches, which is ideal, doing about 3 pounds. Now, this one here, it holds about 10 pound wax if you melt it. But I very seldom use one that big now, since I'm not doing craft shows anymore. Oh, I don't use it. I just peel it from the house.
What do you got tunneling?
Man,
Tunneling, where the liquid burns through the candle with the milk in it. Have you had that problem before?
most of the time, now, the big candles, the huge candles, sometimes they're just not designed to burn. I'm gonna tell you about the eggs. The perfect burning situation. Nobody walking by waving it or, what I'm saying. If it's sitting in a good thing, you put it in a flat candle holder. When it burns, as it burns, it will burn down in it, and these decorative part will sort of curl down in it. When it gets through burning, there's a little ring about that wide around that's left. It burns up about the best I've ever seen. Now, I've never burned one of these. One thing, it's got so much wax in it, I don't want to waste that much wax me burning. I'd rather sell it to somebody to burn. But now I have a lot of people that buys it. And they rebuy, so undoubtedly it works. But I cannot truly answer the question.
Okay.
I mean, these over 20 ounces, about 25 ounces of wax in there.
So if you're looking for something that is gonna be, like, an use an emergency, that would use the majority of the wax, that would be beneficial, the egg shape.
Right, the egg shape or your tapers, but now keep in mind, I don't put nothing on them to make them drippers. They do drip. They tapers with it. Now, I don't know what the product is. There is a product you can put on it, but it's a chemical, and I just don't want to use it. But it does run the taper. Yes.
Philip, Rachel's asked, how would somebody go about buying candles from you?
Call me, and my wife and I'll be glad to carry you. We have a little building, we call her a honey barn. And Nancy will be glad, or I'll be the one to be glad to meet you there. And my number is 256-507-0262. Nancy's number is 256-708-7963. sometimes we have poultry hounds also, and she takes care of them while I'm at my public job, so. Sometimes she's, she can't hear the phone, she won't answer, but just leave her a message, she'll call you back. Most of the time I'm available if the phone at work ain't going crazy. And I will call you back. Just leave a message. Odd numbers, sometimes I won't answer till I hear something, because you never know these days, but anyway. I don't have nothing else. I'm sorry it's ending a little bit short, but if y'all got any other questions, now I'll be glad to do what I can.
Do you have any, would you be prepared if somebody wanted to buy candles tonight?
If they want to buy some, I sure won't turn it down. Now, I'm not here politicking to sell candles, don't you understand that? But now my daddy raised me different, don't never turn down an opportunity. If you want to, you can. Now, if somebody wants these hand dipped here, if you'd like to have one of them, the first 3 people up here can have them. There's nothing wrong with them, don't get me wrong, they're fine. But, this is whether they're not wick, more likely to be trimmed more than that. But they'll burn fine.
What's the source for your molds and your wicking?
Oh, I'm sorry. Write this down. Better be. They're in Oregon, I think. New York, excuse me. Didn't miss it far. Better be Man Lake, which is in Minnesota. And Day is in Illinois, but now they're all over the United States. There's one in Florida, Kentucky. But these have, Day has a little less inventory of candle modes. Better be in Man Lake and Candlewick. Candlewick is, they sell modes that you don't have to use no modes. That's all they sell. They have a real good, they're a little more pricey, but you don't have to use no mower they sell. And this, if you ever wanted to use this mode, it's actually split in half because you cannot virtually pull that candle out the way it's shaped. You just put rubber bands around it and hold it together to pour it. And it's a beautiful candle. And it's very eye appealing. And my wife has actually burned it before. So. But has anybody else got a question?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
So I've been in the construction trades for 30 years, and it's always been my mantra that if you come to something, you pick up 1 or 2 tips, it's well worth your time.
Yes.
And this is well worth my time.
I appreciate you coming around that. I enjoy this, but I would love if you're interested at the fair. This would be I'm looking forward to some variety that we missed out on the fair.
What's something they would judge at the fair for?
Well, I don't know who's gonna be judging it. I know
We'll
who
get
judges the
there when we
honey.
get there.
Yeah, I know who judges the honey. But what they're gonna do is, they're gonna get picky on candles. They're gonna look for perfection. This is, if you enter, I'm gonna put 2 of them up right now. It's a no-brainer who would win that class. The one in the left would win it because there's some imperfections, not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's what they're gonna look for. They're gonna look for, a pretty candle, nicely shaped, everything just right, no trash, and it's gotta be a perfect candle. But a hand-dipped candle is a class of its own. Because the big ones I do, and if you'll notice, I don't know if y'all noticed on these candles, if you look at them real close, they nearly look like a carrot. Because they have a little design in them like a carrot, really. They're pretty neat, actually. But, and that's something you gotta look at if it's a poured candle or a dip candle.
Now, sometimes on a beeswax candle, they get like a little.
Now, well, all right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Dusty. I don't
It's-
know
All right, you see this candle?
Mhm.
It's called bloom. Beeswax naturally blooms. And all you gotta do is buff it off or take your hair dryer and go, and it comes back to the pretty color. Now Nancy does on these here, now these yellow ones have bloomed. If you look, let me just hold on a little bit. Of course, this yellow wax is a little different. But if you'll notice, there's a bloom on it. You can wipe it off, you can take a rag and wipe it off, or a blow dryer and it comes off. That's just a natural thing about beeswax. It's gonna bloom. That's just part of it. And they're gonna look for straightness of the candle and all that good stuff. But now I honestly don't know who's gonna judge.
Are they gonna have different classes of candles or?
We're working on that.
Yeah,
right?
we're working on that.
It's a working in progress,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be, I'm excited about it. Actually, I hope we have some participation.
Will they burn them? You could have a beautiful candle, but it might not burn. Correctly.
Working in process. To be honest with you, but I'm not gonna, I'm just making a comment here, don't take it the wrong way. I'm not gonna wait and see how they burn if I'm judging for a long time. Of course, last year I had some great help judging Honey, our new extension coordinator. We had a good time. We got to meet each other during that time and we enjoyed our conversation. But, you know, during that process, you might be able to burn some and see how they do, but I don't know, we haven't crossed that part either. But it'd be neat if people would participate, it'd be pretty neat. But it's gonna have to be, people's gonna have to try it. And it's all gonna be a learning process for all of us. We're just trying to get more involved in the county. Does everybody live in Cullen County this year?
No, Birmingham.
Birmingham?
Uh-huh.
You come a long ways.
Some are from Morgan County.
Really?
It's still in our.
Oh, yeah, y'all can enter now. You can enter and come and it's open now. But I really appreciate, I appreciate everybody coming. But some went further and I really appreciate that. I hope it's been worth your time.
When is the fair?
It'll be in October and I don't know, do you know the date yet?
Somewhere like the second week of October, roughly. No, that's just a guess
And
because I
it'll
only
run-
did one.
It'll start on a Thursday, go through that weekend and then go to the next weekend, whenever it is.
It says 7 through 16.
Ma'am,
I think it said 7 through 16.
okay, that sounds about right.
So,
And most of the time, the honey and stuff comes in on the Wednesday prior to the fair starting. And I'm sure everything will be in by that Wednesday.
if you
Prior
go
to-
to colemanfair.org, it has the schedule and everything on it, and so it has where the exhibitor entry info, and so you can go and look at what days they're taking it in. You just look at Sportsman's Lake and they hand you a little ticket and drop off your stuff, and you might win some. You might not.
Yeah,
Fun though.
We will have as kind of the last part of our little prepare for the fair series in September. We will have like a how-to on registering, and so it'll be at the extension office. So we'll get people, if you've never entered before, you can come up, especially with like produce and stuff. We'll kind of show you how do you make your produce look good. You would be surprised if you've never walked by, people will turn in potatoes that look like they literally dug them 5 minutes ago. And so we want to kind of encourage people, especially to come and participate, but teach them like, how do you be successful? How do you win money through presentation? But it'll also talk to you about when do you enter, if you're going to enter candles, when's the best, what day should you show up on, that process that you'll go through. So that'll be in September whenever we do that.
and what the great thing is, if you win first place, you get the money, you get to carry it back home. That's not a bad deal. But it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Is there entry fees?
Come in. Just your time and effort comes. That's the way it is with the honey. I'm sure it'll be somewhere there. Yeah.
Where do you sell your honey?
In my house, I have a hunter system. at Warner's, trading. They sell my honey. 157 at the Shell station there. The Conoco that has the Subway sandwich. If you go on down 157, Katoma Mart sells it. Medical Arts. The Pure Station there on 31, I'm having to think about it. The Pure Station at 31 and Federal Fertilizer. They sell my but now, and you're more welcome. We have an honor system at our house. We've been doing it for about 25, 30 years.
So Phil, where's your house? Where do you live?
If you go up 31 from here and you get to Highway 157, if you're going north, turn right. Go to the bottom of the hill. We always call it Stockyard Hill. Stockyard's at the bottom of the hill. Turn left. And I'm exactly 2 miles on the right. County Road 1327. And we're the last house on the right.
Do you have a sign?
We don't, but it says Phillip Garrison Farm. We have poetry and it's in my name, so it's have my name there. But just turn right, we're the last house on the right. The first driveway, we got 2 driveways. The first driveway is where the honor system is. If you go down to the second driveway, it's a little easier to turn in, just turn and come back to it. And there is, if you remember, at every grocery store or anywhere, there's these little bitty drink boxes. These was the older ones, not the new ones that got bigger. This one here is just one of them old drink boxes. I called Cole one time and said, "You got one of them that don't work?" He said, "Oh yeah." I don't imagine why you want one that don't work. I said, "Got a purpose." And that's what we use. And beside it is a yellow cylinder that's got a slit that's hard to see because of where the rain won't go in, but it's a little lip sticking out. And there's a hole that you stick your money in. The check or cash. If the check bounces, we'll come and eat off of it for a week. But anyway.
And I'll make a plug for you. At the retail locations, the bottle is gonna say Gold Pine Farms.
Not no more. It says
Oh, it does?
Phil, it
I'm
says
so
Phil
sorry.
Garrison. I changed it.
Okay. I like
We had Gold Vine Farms. I won't tell you why. I was raised at Go Ridge. My wife was raised at Pine. But we decided to change it to my name.
Okay. No.
I still have my wife for 46 and a half years. Don't think I'm married. And I'm still crazy about it. That was, she's been a joy of my life, that's for sure. We're
So if
crazy.
anybody was interested in beekeeping more, can you tell them something about the association here in Coleman?
Yes, we have, thank you for calling it up. We meet every odd month of the year, except July. Because this beekeeper's too busy in July. I just cannot go to a bee meeting in July. But we started it when the extension agent was there then. You know, there were several beekeepers said, you know, we need a bee club. And of course, I had joined the Alabama Beekeeper Association at that time. And so I called the extension agent. I asked him, I said, do you have a list of beekeepers? He said, oh yeah, I looked, he looked up, he said, I got 160 something people. And I thought, good grief. Well, I didn't realize that dated back to 1940, up to 1990. I said, wow. I wonder how many of these have still got a phone number and how many are still kicking, you know? Well, when it's all said and done, I'm making phone calls, of course, unfortunately, 70% of them never did answer the phone, so I figured out what was going on there. But when I did talk to some, they sort of laughed and chuckled. I could tell they was in their 80s and 90s, and there's nothing wrong with that because I'm headed that way real fast. But anyway, it was pretty neat. Our first beekeeping meeting in Coleman, we had 3 people, and I was one of them. And but we sometimes We haven't had as much here lately because of all this goofy stuff that's going on that we can't help. It's just part of our life now. But anyway, we have had as many as 40 in it. And we meet on the second Tuesday at 6:30 in the Alpha Building on Main Street. If you know where Glover's Produce is, it's right across the road from Glover's. We meet in the back room. Does not cost a thing to come to it. You just come to it. We're just some beekeepers and somebody will be talking about something about honeybees, I promise you. Now I am the president of Alabama Beekeepers at the present time. This will be my last year because my term is up. I enjoy that. It's quite a bit of work, but I enjoy being involved in the state. We have run, is it, do you know, is it getting it around 1,000 to 1,100 members now, something of that nature?
I was thinking it was around 900,
Yeah.
but it, you know.
Ron is very involved in the state also. She always does a great job on the calendar and a lot of things that a lot of us don't know about. She does a good job. But I'm fortunate to be the president this year, and that will be the 16th and 17th in September at the Performing Arts in Clinton. And if you know where the Big Peach is, that's the exit you turn at and go down to Jeff State, and the Performing Arts is down in the basement. We would love for you to be a part of that. Now, there is a cost for that one because of the expense.
And it's the 100th anniversary.
And this year, and that's another thing, I'm tickled to death, I'm president, we're 100 years old this year. The state association, that's an honor to be where I'm at right now. But we're gonna have a big deal on that. So if you're interested in coming, there'll be all kind of vendors there. There'll be, last year we had 20 plus vendors there. If you call them beforehand, they'll bring the product, and if anything, it'll be a very minimal charge. Most of it don't cost you nothing to bring for your buying product. And they'll have stuff there to buy if you're interested. And Man Lake always comes and they always have some overflow. Not a big variety, but they do have some. But we'd love for you, if you're interested, we would love for you. And there's some local beekeepers that you know, I've over the years, I've been blessed to be able to help get some beginner beekeepers. And it's more rewarding to me than it is to beekeepers. Because it just tickles me to see them get involved and stick with it. Unfortunately, there's more likely 50+% that doesn't make it. But it's a joy to see the ones that does. It's a thrill in my heart to see that happen, because I love to see younger people get into it also, because we need to keep that tradition going. And if you're interested in beekeeping, keep in mind there's a lot of things that fades out, but you know, nearly everybody, I don't care how young or how old, they like honey. Most of them do. Not everybody. I'm not gonna say everybody likes honey. My honey don't eat as much honey as I do, but she likes it. She uses it. She uses it in some in cooking. There's certain things that she don't like the robust taste of honey like I do. I like the dark honey. It's got that good honey flavor. She likes the light honey because it's mild, and it really tastes good in food. You get the natural sweetener, but you don't get that honey flavor. But you know, that's one thing. You know, I grew up on a farm that we made sorghum syrup. There was a syrup mill on my farm for 110 years. 3 years ago, we quit making it. Broke my heart to quit. But my oldest brother said, "Philip, I'm done. I'm just getting too old." So we quit. But not everybody likes sorghum syrup. I dare say, I don't know, looking around, there's more like 50% in here that don't even know what it is. Much less tasty. But sorghum is something, if you grew up with, you like it. But the younger generation, most of them don't like it because they've never eaten it. But it does have a different flavor. It'll make a bad sweet potato taste good, is all I'm gonna say. But anyway, I'm sorry, I rambled a little bit too much.
You still with our honey?
I do. I have, my wife informed me, she said, you're not gonna run out of light honey. I said, yes, ma'am. The best way I figured out to get along in life, no, I'm just kidding. I say
No,
yes,
you're
ma'am.
not. Just tell the truth.
Yes, ma'am. Hey there, sister. But,
It don't really bother us why.
yeah, you know, I always get the last word. Yes, ma'am. No, but, you know, and we do have some light honey, but it's pretty select. Who gets that? My wife's gonna get it first, but there is a few, and if you just have a bad hanking for a light jar of honey, we might release a few jars. But then my wife's not gonna run out of it. Anybody else got a question or comment? I can tell you a lot about my history. I've enjoyed my life.
So this is my 3rd year in beekeeping and entering my 4th. And I started this winter with 4 hives. I lost one. I kind of knew I would. It was a small split,
You've done great.
you know. But I kept walking past these hives and I'm learning so much more. I mean, I'm seeing pollen come in. I'm just things I've never paid attention to in my life. And she's walked past the hives too, and I mean, they just smell so sour, and you think, so what is going on in here? But boy, when we pulled them bars and got some honey off that dark stuff you're talking about.
But it tastes good. Don't it?
Oh, yes, it does.
Now, one thing about it, how in the fall of the year when the goldenrod blooms, it smells pretty rotten.
Yes.
But I'm glad the bees like it, because I particularly don't care for that. I would eat it, but that's not my most favorite. Anybody else got a comment or question? I do appreciate you coming. I hope you learned something. I hope it was not too boring. Hope you enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed being a part of it. Thank you.
Paula, do you have any of the grower guides that you could pass out? Rachel said that if everybody had one, or if they did have one, Phillip's in there as Gold Vine Farm
Right.
still, so this
I know
location.
I have some in my car that I was gonna distribute, but I can try to find some around here.
Okay,
There's
for
just
those
a
that are
couple of things, there's some books on this back corner here that are free for the taking. Also, I'm moving, or I'm selling, downsizing, and I have oh gosh, an Excalibur dehydrator that, is just very, very gently used that I'm willing to sell. I think I paid $250 for it. I'd be willing to sell that for $100. If anybody's interested, I'm just trying to get the word out. This is the kind of community that would be interested in that. And if you want to see anybody have an interest in baby eastern box turtles, we have 10 of them in this aquarium over here. If you're just really curious.
He said we meet at the Alpha building
But
in
we appreciate you guys.
on
We
Main
appreciate
Street.
you.
Main Street.
You do an excellent
Alpha?
job,
Mhm.
and, we really
Like the
appreciate
Alpha
you.
Insurance.
We appreciate you for all being here.
Oh, okay.
So,
Alpha
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
building, and that's in Coleman. Yes, ma'am.
I'll go to the second